Hi everybody, this is part 10 of that's my series. We're almost done. Let me read the chapter heading from my blog. Part 10, Jesus the Jew versus Christianity. Kersten's book, Jesus lived in India. Semitic people in the Kashmir. Jesus influenced Buddhist doctrine. A possible future Jewish Messiah. Oh, there's another issue that we can talk about. You know, it is likely that neither did Jesus die, that is, when they say he did, nor was he resurrected. You see, I had read a book once which greatly impressed me, and it's still in print. It reads like a carefully researched doctoral thesis. The book is entitled Jesus Lived in India, His Unknown Life Before and After the Crucifixion by Holger Kersten. The book makes the point that nobody dies from a few hours of being crucified, and that is largely a death by exposure to the elements and thirst. Making a person suffer a long, agonizing death in public view is sort of the point. Remember that Jesus had a few rich friends, one of whom being Joseph of Arimathea, who bribed Pilate to have Jesus taken down almost immediately after he had been put up. They had to use that story about Jesus being stabbed with a spear to convince anybody that Jesus could possibly have died after so brief an ordeal. But yes, Jesus was taken down, treated for his wounds, and as soon as he could walk was told to get out of town and to go to Damascus, which was outside Roman jurisdiction, so that Pilate could finally wash his hands of the whole affair. Jesus went on to become a kind of spiritual superstar in the Far East and was said to have been keynote speaker at the Third World Buddhist Conference. You see, the Buddhists were caught up in so many doctrinal quarrels among themselves that they reached out to Jesus as a neutral speaker so they would know what it sounded like for everybody to clap together. From that, we get the famous Zen koan. What is the sound of two hands clapping? You know, it would be an insult to say the koan is actually what is the sound of one hand clapping. It would be a slap in the face. A slap in the face, one hand, one sound of one. It's supposed to be a joke. You're supposed to laugh. Anyway, it is said that Jesus died in India at close to 100 years old, and his tomb is in the Kashmir, and any cab driver can take you to see it. Well, all that sounds lovely until we add it all up. Okay, look. Jesus quits his messianic mission and has one really bad day, and then has to do a little physical therapy, and then goes on to live another 60 years like a rock and roll star. Jesus would be 70 when he would hear of the sacking of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple, and the devastations done to Judea. But wouldn't that have just verified what his prophetic vision had already told him? So did Jesus make a calculation? What if he could have made the world situation by being Messiah, but somehow it would not quite have been the same beautiful rock star life that he ended up with? Did Jesus sell out? Well, the author of that book, Holger Kersten, does point out details that could make us think the situation a bit more complex than that. It seems that the Kashmir, then as now, is populated by Semites. He even uses pictures of people's noses. Okay. But Kersten reviewed census material going back to these ancient times and found that during that time, 1 out of every 4 boys was named Moses. He found place names that match place names from the Old Testament. He provides evidence that the Holy Land Jews did not become acquainted with their books of Moses until the time of their Babylonian captivity, which is rather late in their history. Well, Babylon was a cosmopolitan city in a cosmopolitan world. The growing Persian Empire had secured a wide-scale peace, so trade routes stretched into the far east through India. The Jews in Babylon during their captivity may have found the story of their Semitic cousins from the Kashmir, the land of milk and honey. It's Moses. It might not have been about Egypt. It might have been about some pharaoh in India. It's the Jews. They were like screenwriters. It's Jews based on a true story. Well, thinly based on a true story. It might have been what happened. Kersten, talking about the land of milk and honey, Kersten wondered how anybody could call the scrub brush of the Holy Land the land of milk and honey. But the Kashmir is a land of lakes and fertile valleys and an altitude high enough above sea level to break the heat of India. There is probably no more beautiful country in the world than the Kashmir. And to Jesus, wasn't it also Jewish? Every fourth boy was named Moses. The people of the Kashmir certainly didn't give Jesus the hard time that he got back, from there. Maybe Jesus just picked the better Jews. But still, it's no empire righteousness spread throughout the world with its epicenter in the Kashmir. Well, but Kersten does wonder whether Jesus may have influenced Buddhist doctrine. You see, original Buddhist doctrine was entirely nihilistic, as pessimistic as any kind of spiteful French existentialism. Original Buddhism tells us that the source of all suffering is desire. Effectively, Buddha was telling people to give up caring about anything. But Jesus fell in with the Mahayana, the Reform Buddhist movement, the Mahayana reforms, which pushed the Bodhisattva ideal of saints educating humanity. Jesus gave meaning to Buddhism. He imbued it with a sense of social morality. So yes, perhaps Jesus did make a calculation and determine the path that truly did maximize his utility to the world. But then, it doesn't answer for a Jewish Messiah. Is there going to be a Jewish Messiah? I have had dreams in which I've encountered a young king of light complexion but black hair. And his nose wasn't small. He's been growing up in my dreams. He started as a gloriously noble but proud young fool. He had to be protected from his own impulses that were idealistic, they were conforming to the highest principles, but they were impractical to the extreme. But from dream to dream, he grew and became wiser and better measured, less of a danger to others and to himself. In the last dream, I looked at him and realized he no longer needed babysitting. There was smoke on the horizon from a burning town, and with a grim and steady determination, he started marching straight towards it. There would be no evasion or self-doubt this time. Maybe he's the Jewish Messiah. I think if I saw him in the news, I'd know it was him. Anyway, it's one more to go.